And that's what we're teaching kids by making these practices and games so official from such a young age, is that we are outsourcing their self-worth.
Anecdotally, how many games did Messi's parents go to for the first 14 years of his life?
Okay, welcome listeners to episode 2 of our podcast series titled Play On, Why Street Soccer. I'm John Henderson. I'm here with my co-host and founder, CEO of Metal Sports. He's also our nation's leading advocate for street soccer, Neal Lohman. And we've got a great guest today. She's a former member of the USA Women's National Soccer Team, author of the book, Raising Tomorrow's Champions, What the Women's National Soccer Team Teaches Us About Grit, Authenticity, and Winning. It was just released in early 2021. And it's a pleasure to welcome Joanna Lohman. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
What is up? It's so good to be on the show. And how about that equal pay, guys?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be unbelievable. It should have been something that was around a long, long time ago, and we shouldn't be shocked by finally getting it. But yes, it's something to celebrate for sure.
35 years of fighting for equality, and the contract was signed in Washington, D.C., my hometown, in front of a huge crowd at Audi Field, where I played professionally for multiple games for the Washington Spirit. So it felt like, I don't know, we really came full circle on that one. And I felt so proud to be a part of the women's national team and their movement for social justice and equality, and the impact they've made on generations to come. So we're going to give some snaps to that.
Snaps for sure. Okay, there's the other side of that, though. So let's dive right in. I reached out to you because I read your article in Soccer America, and I was just chilled by it. And you were singing our song, and we're singing your song, and you couldn't have been any more spot on. Your article is titled, What's Wrong with You Sports? It's broken for sure. We've turned especially soccer, but many other sports, on its head. So let's get right to it. And look, the U.S. Soccer Federation is in there as part of it. So yes, they did great things. We got the equal pay, but we've got some stuff to fix too. So Joe, what's wrong with you sports?
Neal, I wish we weren't having to have this conversation today. And it's gotten to a point where I felt like I had to speak up as a coach with their USSFB license and someone who is often around youth athletes, their parents, their coaches, the clubs. I feel a lot of pain. I feel a lot of pain from the athletes themselves. I feel a lot of pain for the coaches and the clubs, and especially the parents, because we have turned youth sports, which should be a joyous occasion of uninhibited play, into a true, I would say, business, into a business that is all consuming. It's a juggernaut that really eats kids alive and eats their parents, where children are quitting in great numbers by the age of 11, 13, because they don't feel like sport is a place for them anymore. And they feel that way because they often are hearing messages that you have to specialize, you have to be great at a sport to play it. You have to play one sport all year long. You have to travel all over the country for competitive games. You are going to get ranked by the age of 6 years old. And it's a very results-driven business at this point. And the kids who are already under great amount of pressure, the levels of anxiety and depression in teens are just through the roof. And now sport is an area where it is contributing, I think, to the mental health degradation of our youth. And I just want to be someone who's an antidote to this system, which I believe is a runaway train. And I want to tell and reassure parents that there are other ways to do this than what you're being told.
So is that the message of your book, Raising Tomorrow's Champions?
It's one of the messages. There's many messages in that book, but it's truly a parenting and life lessons book of what it takes to be great and what it takes to be a champion. And when I say that, Neal, I mean, we redefine what the word champion means. A champion is not someone who's lifting a trophy at the end of the day. A champion is not someone who makes a national team or plays in the Olympics. A champion is someone who's able to find their authentic self and live with confidence and and contentment as they achieve whatever dream that they have. Because let's be real, the percentage of kids who are going to go on to play professionally is minuscule, right? The percentage of kids that will go on to represent their country in an Olympics or in a World Cup or in some sort of international competition is even smaller. So the fact that we're focusing on the 1%, less than 1%, as opposed to the 99% is a little bit scary. And the book was a way to reassure parents that, listen, don't lead with the end goal, right? Don't lead with a college scholarship or wanting to make it pro. Lead with the joy of playing sport and the lessons that sport teaches when it comes to failure, resiliency, focus, leadership, and allow our kids to absorb these lessons without the parents getting in the way. That was a real message of what we're trying to send.
So returning sports to the kids.
Exactly. We've stolen it from them, and we have figured out a way to make it the least fun possible as we get in their way.
Well, let's be real. You grew up in that system, right?
Yeah.
You came to greatness in that system. So I've gotten to know you, and I'm very happy that we've become friends. And I can honestly say that you are so genuine in your beliefs about greatness being so much more than the sport itself. And I love the concept of authentic self. But how did you get here? You're great, phenomenal. I mean, top of the game. And you came up in what we're now looking back and seeing is a broken system.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you highlight that. And I believe the way that I played youth sports was so wholesome, so organic. So I'll give you some details. First of all, I had an older brother, right? We see a lot of themes with athletes who make it to the highest levels. A lot of them have older siblings, and that is an older brother, to be specific. And so I spent my whole youth playing sports with my brother's friends. So I'm talking baseball, basketball, swimming, tennis, street hockey, football, rugby. I would get bloody noses and I'd come back the next day to play more. So there was no such thing as sports specialization. I ran cross country in high school. I played basketball. I played softball. I didn't specialize in soccer until I was about a junior in high school, which is really late now for kids.
Yeah.
And you're going to find a common theme of the greatest athletes who make it to the highest level. They do not specialize. It's called sports sampling. It gives kids an opportunity to figure out what fits for them, and it allows them to become better all-around athletes. So I could take what I learned in basketball and reading how a ball hits the backboard or the rim, and I could translate that into soccer. My dad and I used to throw the football every single night, and I would do diving catches into the neighbors' yards. Like, I can translate the flight of a football into the flight of a soccer ball. I was an incredible header. I'm only 5'5". How is that possible? It's because I can read the flight of a ball. So all of these experiences really enabled me to be an incredible all-around athlete, and also really wholesome and healthy, because I didn't feel like the sport of soccer defined me. And my parents didn't know much about soccer. They would take me to practice. I would often carpool to practice. They would come to games, but it wasn't this intense experience for our family. I would often turn down tournaments around Christmas time because I wanted to spend time with my family. It wasn't this all-encompassing, overwhelming sport life. And I had a brother and a sister, so they also had to be paying attention to their lives. And another example is that my coach for 13 years, I played for Bethesda Soccer, was a father of one of my teammates. So we're not talking about these high-paid coaches that come from overseas. It was a really, really wholesome experience. And it enabled me to love the sport for exactly what it was. I didn't want to win for a trophy. I wanted to win out of pride for myself, my neighborhood, my teammates. My parents never pressured me to play. They were just there supporting me along the way. They never analyzed the game on the way home. It was a sport I played purely because I loved it. And funnily enough, I got a full ride to Penn State University. We were all pleasantly shocked because we never thought that would be a byproduct of what I was able to accomplish. And I think that's the beauty if you let the process lead as opposed to the result.
Well, clearly you're an anomaly, right? Because that's not what we're seeing more frequently these days, right? In fact, you pointed out that if you don't go all in on a sport by the time you're a junior in high school, you're probably not going to that sport. I mean, you seem to have found a way to navigate this, and the pieces seemed to be in the right places. And some of my favorite were your point about having older siblings. It strikes me, this conversation I was having with this one guy about street soccer, he said that he doesn't let his son go out. His son was 9 years old, doesn't let his son go out and play when the 15-year-olds are out there. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, we're so preoccupied with this concept of bullying, but when you share that common goal of going out and wanting to play a sport, especially a sport as beautiful and simple as soccer, different ages make all the difference to both the older and the young.
I thought I learned the most in simple pickup games in my neighborhood, right? It was not organized by a parent. There were no cones, goals, water bottles. It was the kids who organized it, the kids who self-regulated, who refereed it. And that's when you truly learn the experience of playing, right? And that's when you want to win so badly because it's for neighborhood pride, right? It's for your reputation. And I think we've gotten to a point now in sport where there is so much extrinsic motivation that we place on these children, trophies, national championships, rankings from such a young age that they now play to get approval from either a parent, a coach, or some sort of extrinsic reward, as opposed to playing for the joy of playing, right? And that's the danger that we have when we have national championships at the age of 6. Okay, so your daughter just won a national championship. That's great. Now what, right? We're pulling out all the beautiful pieces of sport and making it truly a business where the kids just get inundated with pressures. And it's just not a healthy way for them to grow up. And one thing that I want to highlight, Neal, is that you said that I was an anomaly. And interesting enough, I don't think I am, because a lot of the stories of athletes who make it to the highest level have very similar themes, right? They sport sample. They don't have over-involved parents. They are well-rounded athletes. They played pickup in their neighborhoods. And I want to really emphasize that data and science are showing that the way that youth sports is going is not the way it should, right? It's not just anecdotal evidence, but it's actually sports science that is showing us that having kids specialize from a young age is increasing injuries, it's increasing burnout, and kids are quitting. So it's funny that we're hearing this message of like, you have to be great by the age of 7, yet science and anecdotal evidence is showing us the opposite. So we're getting mixed messages, I think.
That's a great point. So, right. So here, even I was automatic in saying that you're an anomaly, but what I'm really talking about is not an anomaly vis-a-vis the people who make it to that level. It's an anomaly vis-a-vis the people who think they're going to make it to that level, and who think their kids are going to make it to that level, because that's not really what's happening. You're great, and you got there with these things in place that most people suck right out of the process, suck right out of the kids' experience. We've taken the soul away from the player. We've taken the soul away from the athlete, and you can see it. I go and watch games, and for instance, I'm very unimpressed with women's NC2A soccer. I feel that it's all power. It's muscle it in, it's force it in, and we've lost that. Exactly what you said, that not only the creativity but the will to take risks, the will to express yourself, the will to be your own person as opposed to the person that your coach or parent wants you to be.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I am finding that in my own work in the NCAA, in the college sphere, is that I see kids who are deathly afraid of failure, that they won't even engage in the process because of it, right? They're showing up and it seems like they're going through the motions because they're just so scared of being the person that makes that mistake, or being a person that could, make a pass that loses it for the team. And when I played, the effort was non-negotiable. The effort was always there. And now it seems like kids need a reason to try, right? They need a reason to put in that effort. So it's a little bit more coaxing, getting that out of each and every player and figuring out how to motivate them. But I think it comes from that fear, that deep, deep fear of not being that great player, right? Because who doesn't want to be that great star player? And so, I've listened to a great podcast with Cheryl Strayed recently, who wrote the book Wild, and she said, don't let your dreams destroy you. And she had this dream of being a great American writer. And that word great was stopping her from writing at all. And I think this is what's going on in youth sports is everybody is told you have to be great. And if you're not, then you stop trying, right? It's like, I don't want to fail. So I'm starting to see that. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And I think it's an issue of how our youth sports system is structured now.
Well, I think that the dreams part is so real because you say, don't live your life or your sports career on the dreams of someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's not only are you just surrendering your own dreams, but then you're being motivated by someone else's intentions, objectives.
Right.
And this gets us to a pretty uncomfortable truth. And that is, what's driving this? So that girl that's living in fear in her college career, she may have made it to NC2A or Division I, whatever, but that's probably not the one that's going to make it over the next hump. Because if you're in that much fear, are you going to be able to bring what it takes, when it takes to bring it, and so forth? So come on, let's pare this down a little deep. Let's expose the wound. What's driving that? Why does someone come into a system and then have that much fear developed out on the field?
Yeah, it's, I hate saying this, but I think the answer to every question is money, right? I think youth sports is a $1 billion industry now. And so we've built an environment where we want to have national championships. We want to have youth World Cups. And don't get me wrong, like these inherently aren't bad. But when these tournaments and when these business-oriented events trickle down to the young ages, you're not allowing children to play for the essence of the sport. Like they're really playing for a result, or they're playing for, at this point, monetary reasons. We're seeing name, image, and likeness now in college. That is trickling down into youth sports. There were 2 second graders on the cover of the Washington Post who are in basketball, who are going to be the youngest NIL athletes, and they're in second grade, Neal. So as soon as we start placing monetary rewards to skill and reputation, it just drives this beast that it's going to be never ending. And I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had an answer that was more solvable, but I think it has to do with the money that's involved in the industry. And I think it has to do with the opportunities that exist if you are great, right? Because if you are great, you can get A, college scholarship, B, you can go professional, C, name, image, and likeness. And so kids are starting to see all of these, I would say, pots of gold, not realizing how difficult it is or how soul-sucking it is to strive for this pot of gold, right? It's the pursuit of the gold that's going to really destroy your soul, because whether or not you get it, you're going to be lonely, right? I think if you're able to play the sport because you love it, because you love the process, you thrive in getting better. It's the growth mindset, right? If that's what drives you, you don't care where you get. You're just happy in the present. So I think it's the pot of gold, honestly, Neal. And I mean, help me. What can we do that will kind of turn this train around?
Well, here's the uncomfortable truth from Neal's standpoint. And that is that there's a level beyond the pot of gold. And that level is the need to succeed, the need to prove to someone else that you succeeded, the need to do something more than just love yourself and love the game. Because how do you love yourself if after every game in the car ride home, your mom or dad are telling you what you need to do better? How can you love yourself when you can't celebrate the one great moment that you had on the field, the 3 not so great moments you had on the field? How do you love yourself and how do you love the game when, we're so many things that we do in society, and I don't want to just blame moms and dads per se, though I did ask someone very high up at the U.S. Soccer Federation once, come on, tell me what's wrong? Why can't we do better internationally? And said soccer moms was the answer. And soccer moms being the metaphor for all these things around someone's ability to just play for the love of the game. I can't believe how many times I have to remind the kids that I coach at the high school level, why are you here? You're not here because of, mom, dad, you're here because you love it. You're here because you love to play. You love wearing your colors and representing your school and going out there and having that one beautiful move or that one great moment. And it's stunning to me how many people come back to the high school, even those that have made it to professional levels, and say their best experience in their entire career was while they were in high school.
Yeah.
And yet we strip so much away from them because of, to your point, right? A coach needs to win because that's how the coach is going to keep the job.
Right.
But I think the deeper part of that is we look for our own self-value based on the performance of our children.
Yeah.
Or performance of the kids that we coach. If this kid doesn't play well, then that says something about me. And that's a brutal reality.
Right.
I believe it's driving so much of this. And I stood there, or I sat there, tried to, watching a high school game the other day, a boys' high school soccer game, and this dad from the other side standing the entire time and yelling at every player on his own team to do better, to pass the ball, to shoot, blowing like he's calling offsides when the referee missed the call, according to him. I mean, the most unsportsmanlike, the most unsupportive father. I mean, representative to me then of absolutely everything that's wrong with youth sports.
Yep. Yeah. And you see that sadly a lot now. And we've built a results-based culture, right? It's the culture of youth sports. It's not the shark, it's the water that we're swimming in, right? And that's a big difference. And we're going to need people, we're going to need parents, we're going to need clubs that are able to fight the pressure of joining this result-based culture. And we're going to need parents that genuinely listen to their kids and aren't the ones leading the journey, right? You see so many parents leading their child's journey vicariously, but really literally. And so the child just follows along. But we have to listen to our kids and figure out what is making them happy, what's not making them happy, what do they want to do? Because at the end of the day, Neal, it's not about the trophy they win on the weekend. It's about raising a child who's happy at the age of 25. Like, we have to have this long-term vision where we ask ourselves and we make decisions based upon our values. Is this going to make my child happy at the age of 25? And how many parents actually think about that? It's hard, but I think we'd make choices a lot differently if we did. Would I allow my child to play for a coach who screams at her all practice long? No. Because you know what? We're teaching my daughter that it's okay to be spoken to like that is an effective way of leadership. And that's how you get a result. That's horrible for a child to learn at such a young age. And you see it so prolifically, these coaches that are joysticking our kids through sport as opposed to allowing them to experience it.
It's not even just the kids. Look at the women's league.
Yeah.
Look at the toxic environment there. And these are adults.
Yep.
They're all adults. And we're so driven by, you raised such a great point about how we're ranked and how we're driven by the results. And Mark Jakic, who wrote the book Football Object Lessons.
Yeah.
He's coming up, and he said assessment. There's the book. Love it. Showing the book. Unfortunately, our podcast audience can't see it, but we told them about it for sure. Fabulous book of essays on the culture of soccer, but he calls it assessment. We're so preoccupied with assessment. We want to assess things. And shameless plug here, when we take metal sports pitches and put them all over the urban center and just let kids come out and play, it changes everything. And so maybe we adopt the model from In Search of Bobby Fischer, and we lock all the parents away so the kids can just play.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. Believe me. I mean, anecdotally, how many games did Messie's parents go to for the first 14 years of his life? Were they pacing up and down the street, when he was playing street ball, barking out who should do what and how? I mean, it's mind-boggling how over-controlling we are of a kid's and now even an adult's athletic career because of the need for money, as you say, which in turn then somehow reflects on our own self-worth, which, to your point, if I'm on my deathbed and I look back and say, gee, if only I'd gotten that coach to scream at my daughter some more, it would have been much better.
I love how you bring up self-worth, because I think that's a huge piece of it. The more that we teach our kids, the more that we look outside and ask, am I okay? Ask a coach, am I okay? Ask a parent, am I okay? Ask the environment, am I okay? And we can't make that determination on our own through our own value system, through our own vision of confidence and self-worth, then we're really outsourcing our own idea of identity, right? And that's what we're teaching kids by making these practices and games so official from such a young age, is that we are outsourcing their self-worth. They're going to constantly look over to the sideline. Is mom and dad, whomever my parent is, are they happy with the way I just played? Is my coach screaming at me? No. Okay. That must mean that I'm doing something okay. And it's not a system that allows our children to find their own self-worth from a young age. And so when they get to college, like we're speaking about, Neal, then they're still looking outside for it, right? They're still thinking, I need to get the A's, or of course you do, but what does my teacher think of me? What does my coach think of me? I'm so afraid of failure because they may not, be happy with the way that I'm playing. So
yeah,
it goes really deep. And sadly, like, we have to see the long-term effects of what we're creating now. And I think it's just even more anxiety and depression for our kids because of the system that we've created.
Oh, gives me the willies just thinking about it. I'm thinking that the juxtaposition of that is how empowered you must have felt in figuring out the flight of the ball at a young age and being able to do it over and over again, and not having someone, sit down and lecture you on the flight of balls and the physiology or the, whatever, the physics of it all. That's empowering. Going in a street soccer court and just playing because you want to play and you want to be great and you're thinking of yourself as your own superstar. That's empowering. Saying to somebody, show me what you got. Instead, this is what I want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Two simple little changes of a phrase.
Right.
And the mind, the psyche, the spirit of a person completely alters.
Yeah, it's the power of language that you speak of. And I love what you guys are doing with street soccer. I think it's bringing the pure beauty of the game back. And I think kids, adults, teens, they all need to see this and they all need to play together, right? We talked about having all these different ages, different genders, and seeing all the lessons, the beautiful lessons that sport can teach, because they're still there. We just have to kind of get through the muck of what we've created to find those lessons. And, I'm a upcoming parent, right? My wife is pregnant. She's due at the end of December, and telling myself some life lessons here, right? I'm sure it's going to be so difficult. And I don't want parents to think that we're ripping on them, right? Like, I realize being a parent is so hard, and it's the keeping up with the Joneses, right? Kind of situation where they're just trying to keep up and do what they think is best for their child. So if one parent walks away from this podcast and says, maybe I'll do things differently, I'm going to listen to my kid tonight, or I'm going to allow our child to play a different sport, or if there's some sort of change, then I feel like we've moved the needle even a little bit, because it's going to take a shifting of culture to really create the change that we speak of. And it's going to take more street soccer. It's going to take more Joe Lohmans and groups that are willing to sort of, resist and speak up against what is this current system that we've created. And I have a lot of respect for parents, and I want them to understand this so I can take away some of their pain. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And such a noble cause, because, we're stuck in that dynamic of all ships rise with the rising tide. And the rising tide, unfortunately, has been that even good-hearted parents who are doing a great job raising their kids get sucked into the system, right? Yep. Then now we have a new bar, we have a new way, we have a new form of assessment. There's not a parent around where I live who would wait until junior year of high school to decide whether or not they're going to become a professional baller. Yeah. Right. So they're already starting at 3 years old, not because they have really bought into that, but if you don't do it, then your kid's going to be left out. So what you bought into is not wanting to have your kid feel left out. Right. So balance that. Yeah. The empowerment that you were given as a kid to sort of steer the bus for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the social, emotional, physical, mental needs of our kids, and sport plays a huge role in that. And I do think they're all intertwined, right? You don't want to bend over backwards just to fit in and be a part of the cool crowd, right? Because we preach authenticity, and each kid is so unique in their own specific journey that there's no cookie cutter way for a kid. And that's what our book really emphasizes. Like, there's no one way to the top. Some kids Gail Averbush, for example, who was a colleague of mine, she played professionally for many, many years. She loved soccer from the age of 5, right? And her parents could not convince her otherwise to play a different sport. She was just hell-bent on playing soccer. And that is, you'll see that at moments, right? Serena Williams, Venus Williams, and those types of scenarios, but they are the exception and not the rule. And kids deserve the opportunity to find their own place. And sometimes it takes falling down, it takes failure, it takes mistakes. And that's the beauty of sport, is it gives us the opportunity to fail in hopefully a system that is safe. And they can come back the next day and they can try again. And what better lesson to learn than you can make a mistake and come back and try again, right?
These are some of the things that you classify under what you call the power of sports, right? These are the upsides. There's lots of great science, as you say, on the upsides of sports. GPAs are higher in organized sport groups in high schools than those that aren't in organized sport or organized activities as well. There are all those abilities for life lessons, but of course that does presuppose that you've got a coach and an environment that supports being able to get those lessons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wrote a program which was all about discipline. So I created a discipline initiative for our teams. And that discipline is not, oh, you're bad, drop and give me 20. Your discipline is, why when we're running around the field to warm up, do we go on the outside of the corner flags as opposed to cut across? Because we're going to gain so much more physically because we've added those 3 or 4 extra feet as we go around? No, because it puts your mind straight.
Yeah.
Disciplines you to do something because that's where your focus is, right?
Yeah.
Why do you tuck in? Why do you make sure that you got your shin guards on? Those are forms of discipline, which then translate to you having automatic responses to things on the field, and then bring your creativity and your soul to it on top of that. And then you become the phenom that you were and many of your friends. So boy, kudos to you for receiving that gift. And because a lot of people have those gifts too and get pre-consumed from a variety of sources. And then unfortunately in the inner cities, it's so difficult to receive the gift because so many kids in the inner cities don't feel they're worthy of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of my favorite quotes is Steve Prefontaine: to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And that's something that has always driven me. And I really consider myself one of the lucky ones in terms of my childhood, the way my parents led me and my siblings, my coaches. And I realize that is not really the case anymore. So like you said, every child deserves to have their own journey and to have it unobstructed by, parents and adult figures, so to speak. But, and especially inner city kids who really don't have the same opportunities, especially in soccer. Like soccer is the most democratic sport around the world, except for the United States. And we've really battled that on the women's side too, of soccer being a very white, upper middle class sport. And really, how do you create more opportunities for inner city youth to play such an incredible game? And I'm so glad that there are organizations like yours, Neal, where they're getting these opportunities to play and find the beauty in the sport.
Well, thank you for that. We feel we've swung the pendulum to a point where we really need to move it. There are lots of good-hearted people out there doing lots of great after-school programming, and lots of people that are, signing up kids to play. But the Federation has admittedly dealt with this not so well in the past. It's been an endemic for them that they haven't been able to figure out how to fix, and that is how to reach the millions and millions of kids who play or want to play who aren't currently in the system. And it's and plucking them out of the inner city because we spotted them doing something great and putting them in an elite white program in the suburbs is not the answer. It's never worked that way because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they belong. They're not with their family and friends. So look, we're all about pulling this vibe that you're talking about, going to them, giving them a way to feel empowered, giving them ownership. Ownership's a big, big deal. And quite frankly, no rules, just enough being told what to do and rules and whistles. And that's why a lot of kids don't sign up for stuff. It's just not fun to have over-structured, over-coached programs.
No rules, just play. That's going to be our motto for the rest of 2022.
Let's go with it. I'm in. Well, I am so in. And I know we can go on for hours, and we will. I know you and I are going to go on for hours. And but you're going to be a little preoccupied coming soon. You got you call it your falafel is on.
Yes, we don't know the sex of the child, so we've lovingly referred to it as a falafel. So
okay.
My wife is Middle Eastern, so it fits well, and we just everyone gets a huge kick out of a little baby being called falafel. So we'll wait and see. At the end of December, we'll hopefully have a healthy child, and I will start my own parenting journey. So I'm terrified. I'm excited. I'm soliciting all the help of any of your listeners out there.
Well, I have 3 of my own falafels, so they're all in college now. So I can it'll be I'll have to go back into the archives and pull out stuff that from what we did when they were 1 and 2. But I think you're going to be an awesome mom. And unfortunately, this podcast is recorded, or I think both of you are going to be awesome moms. And this podcast is being recorded, so I'm going to pull it out when your falafel is 1 or 2 years old to remind you of your mission. But no, it's great news. Very excited for you, and very excited that you spent some time with us today, sharing your insights, which are spot on as far as we see them for sure. And love what you've written, and hope that you will continue speaking out, because it needs to be done. And we'll be right there with you, speaking it as loudly as we can as well. So thank you so much, Joe. We really, really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Neal and John, for having me a part of this incredible podcast, and for all the work that you guys do in the inner cities. You really are a gift to the beautiful game. So I'm very passionate about this stuff. So I'm sure I'll be on again sometime soon, and we can keep kicking that ball around.
All right, well, that's a wrap for this week. Huge shout out and thanks to Joanna Lohman, former national team player, former professional player, and a lot to say on this stuff. Her book is Raising Tomorrow's Champions with the Women's National Soccer Team. Teaches us about grit, authenticity, and winning. Get it over on Amazon. Hey, thanks to all the listeners for the comments and the likes and the follows on our pilot podcast last week. We love doing it. We love talking about this stuff. We want you on the show. We want to talk more. Tell us your thoughts. And next podcast coming up, Mark Jakic, author of Football, Object Lessons, a series of essays on the culture of soccer versus the sport. Yes, there's a difference. Until next time, play on.